One day, James was in the yard talking to Thomas and Percy. "I am the most splendid engine," he said. "You know that. Everyone knows that as well." "Oh, bother," Thomas said. "We are all useful and splendid. That's what Sir Topham Hatt says, and he's the director of the railway. He decides which engine is useful or not." "That is true," replied James. "Today I am going to take the mayor." Percy was very cross. "Really?" asked Percy. "Why can't you let Gordon do it?" "Because I am the most splendid engine on Sodor," answered James. "Gordon should be the first one to do it," said Percy. "Just wait and see," said James, and he puffed away. Sir Topham Hatt, Lady Hatt, and the mayor were waiting at the station when James pulled in with the red coach. "This is your treat," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Thank you," replied James. "You will take the mayor. You must go the right way." So the conductor blew his whistle, and James puffed out of the station. He puffed along the countryside as fast as he could when he passed Gordon. "Look at me," he shouted. Gordon was cross. "Show off," he grunted. Later, Sir Topham Hatt came to the sheds. "An engine has to collect the Queen of Sodor." "Who is the Queen of Sodor?" asked Thomas. "A leaky old barge," replied Sir Topham Hatt. "She needs to be taken to the workshop. It will be hard work." Just then, James puffed into the yard. "I need you to take the Queen of Sodor," said Sir Topham Hatt. "She is waiting at the canal. You must be really careful." "Yes, sir," replied James. The other engines were curious. "Maybe the Queen of Sodor might be dirty and wet," said Gordon. "You don't want to get your paint dirty," said Henry. "I'll try to be careful," replied James. "Just wait and see." His fire was burning well, and he puffed away. James puffed along the canal to the works to collect the Queen of Sodor. As he puffed along the canal, he could see himself in the water. "I look very nice in the water," said James. He remembered what Sir Topham Hatt told him. "We have to get there on time," said his driver. James arrived at the works on time. "I'm going to collect the Queen of Sodor," said James. "There she is," said the manager. "You must take her to the smelters." James felt very disgusted. "Yuck," he said, grossed out. "That dirty old tub is filthy. A really useful engine never gets dirty." "We'll just take the Queen of Sodor," said James's driver. James chuffed slowly up to the Queen of Sodor and was coupled up. And he puffed proudly away with the Queen of Sodor. It was a really long journey to the workshop. "I must stay shiny and clean," puffed James. Then there was trouble. "Look out, James," said his driver. "Watch out for the pipe." The tall funnel of the old barge crashed through a pipe. Sludge went everywhere. James shut his eyes tight and thought he would get covered in sludge. But he didn't. "I'm sure we'll make it to the work," said James's driver. "We'll try," replied the fireman. Soon the mess was cleared and James was on his way again to the smelters. James arrived at the smelters on time and was very pleased that the dirty work was all done. The Queen of Sodor was delivered. "Well done," said the yard manager. "You made it." Later that day, when James puffed into the station with his passengers, Toby and Henrietta were waiting there. "Hello," said James. Toby was a little worried. "What's wrong, James?" asked Toby. I was taking that dirty Queen of Sodor to the smelter's yard, replied James. It was very hard work. You must have made it on time, said Toby. James was very cross, and he puffed away with his coaches to collect some trucks. Thomas was shunting some trucks in a freight train for James. At last, the train was ready. These freight cars may pay you back, said Thomas, and he puffed away. James gave the trucks a big, hard bump. The trucks were very cross. James has no right to pull us. We want Thomas or Percy or some other engine instead. James was very cross. The driver and fireman checked James's steam, and the warmth in James's boiler was going well. Come on, said James. We won't, cried the freight cars. James ignored them and pulled them out of the station as hard as he could. James puffed along the line as fast as he could. Hurry, cried James. He was making good time. The freight cars were very heavy, but James puffed along as fast as he could. James's driver and fireman made sure he was doing well. He puffed along the main line. We must be careful, said his driver. Then he puffed past the field where he had his accident one time. Soon he was approaching Gordon's Hill. Here I go, said James. This hill is very steep, said the driver. James puffed up Gordon's Hill as hard as he could. The cars were really heavy. James remembered his first accident with some cars and shouldn't have remembered this. Come on, he puffed. Wait, James, wait, said the driver, but James would not wait. He was thinking about the Queen of Soda he took earlier. Then there was trouble. The freight cars started to push. Go on, they cried, and banging their buffers, they pushed him down the hill. On, yelled the cars. Help, I've got to stop, wailed James. But the cars kept pushing. On, they yelled. James was out of control and couldn't stop. His driver applied the brakes, but it was useless against the trucks. Ha, they cried. Then suddenly James approached the station. Through the station they thundered. Disaster lay ahead. Tar wagons were in the way. James crashed into the tar wagons. James was all black and dirty and sticky. He ran into the tar wagons and was black from smokebox to cap. He was very dirty and hurt. But the tar wagons were in a mess and all in pieces. The fireman went to the signal box and told the signal. The signalman called for help. At last, Percy and Toby arrived to help clean up the mess. They were very surprised. Percy, look at James. He's so dirty, said Toby. Wow, James is so dirty, replied Percy. But James is a very splendid engine, and his cars pushed him too fast. James felt very sad. Toby and Percy had cleared away the unhurt cars, and they helped James home. They took James back to the sheds. When they arrived back at the sheds, Mr. Tom and Happy was waiting. I know you don't like the freight cars pushing you and teasing you, he said, but you must go to the works and be repaired. Go to the washdown and get cleaned straight away. Yes, sir, replied James. Come on, James, said his driver. Let's go to the washdown and get cleaned. Later, when James was at the washdown being cleaned, the workmen were working very hard. It took a very long time to clean James. Soap went all over. When Percy arrived and saw James being cleaned, he spoke to him. "James, I hope you never have that kind of accident ever again," said Percy. "I'll try my hardest not to," replied James. "I don't like getting dirty, but I have a really splendid engine." James was very happy to be clean, and he never had that kind of accident